All right, let's jump right into today's explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through a truly fantastic project today. We're looking at the Sandy Shore Tote by Loomelle Design. Now, if you've been wanting to level up your crochet skills from, say, basic scarves to functional, highly structured items, you are exactly in the right place. This is classified as a beginner plus project, which basically means we're going to build some real structural skills together. Think of this as your complete guided tutorial. So whether you're relatively new or just looking for a solid refresher on bag architecture, we are going to walk through every single stitch, round, and assembly step. Okay, let's dive into this. Just look at that final product right there. It's stunning, right? What we're actually building here is a structured rectangular beach tote. It features this gorgeous open mesh design, a really solid load-bearing base, and seamless, sturdy handles. It completely has that high-end artisanal look, but as you'll see, the logic behind how it's constructed is actually surprisingly straightforward once we break it all down. So here is our game plan for today. We'll start with materials and prep, move on to the rectangular base, then build the mesh body, craft those strong handles, handle the lining and assembly, and finally wrap up with the finishing touches. All right, Section 1, Materials and Prep. Let's get our supplies in order. Preparation is absolutely the key to a professional-looking bag. If you want your tote to look like it came from a chic boutique rather than the bottom of a craft bin, your material choices matter immensely. For your yarn, you're going to need about 650 to 750 yards of a worsted weight size 4 yarn. But listen, here is the most important rule of this entire pattern. You absolutely must use cotton or cotton blend yarn. Please, whatever you do, avoid 100% acrylic yarn for this bag. Acrylic stretches out and pills. Cotton, on the other hand, is essential for the structure, the durability, and holding that crisp open mesh look over time. Now, you might be wondering why we are using 2 different hook sizes. Actually, this is a brilliant design element. You'll use the 5.5mm hook, that's an I9, as your primary tool for the base and that airy body. But you're going to switch down to a smaller 5.0mm hook, the H8, specifically to create a much tighter, stronger gauge for the load-bearing handles. We're also going to need some medium-weight fusible interfacing and an 18mm magnetic snap, but we'll talk more about those when we get to the assembly phase. Let's clarify our terminology real quick before we start stitching. The pattern uses standard US abbreviations, so we'll be using SC for single crochet, DC for double crochet, SLC for slip stitch, and CH for chain. Pretty standard stuff. But the real star of the show here is the mesh stitch. As you can see, this beautiful open body is just a simple, highly approachable repeat. You chain 1, skip 1 stitch, and double crochet into the next. That's literally it. It's incredibly beginner-friendly.
Moving right along to Section 2, the rectangular base.
This foundation is absolutely critical because a solid base is exactly what gives the tote its load-bearing capacity. Think of it like the foundation of a house. We start by grabbing our 5.5mm hook and making a foundation chain of 49. From there, you'll simply work 8 rows of 48 single crochets back and forth. This creates a dense, flat gusset that's about 5 inches deep. Now, to get maximum density, make sure you are working under both loops of the stitch. And here's a great pro tip for you. You can actually take a yarn noodle and weave an extra strand of yarn through these base stitches in a grid pattern. It's totally optional, but highly recommended if you want a really rigid foundation. Now for Section 3, the mesh body. This is where the magic happens. Once your flat base is done, whatever you do, do not fasten off. We are smoothly transitioning to working in the round, and this is where the bag finally starts to take its iconic shape. So the crucial point is 112. During your transition round, you're going to single crochet around the entire perimeter of that rectangle you just made. You need exactly 112 stitches going around the bag body. That breaks down perfectly to 48 stitches on the 2 long sides and 8 stitches on the 2 short sides. Counting accurately here is non-negotiable. It ensures your mesh pattern will line up perfectly later. Let's actually break down how this body is constructed. After that transition round, round 1 introduces our mesh. You'll chain 3, skip a stitch, and double crochet. You'll end up with exactly 56 double crochets and 56 chain 1 spaces. Then, you simply repeat that exact mesh pattern for rounds 2 through 26. You even have the fun option to drop in a contrast color on rounds 3 and 4 if you want a stylish stripe. Finally, rounds 27 and 28 are single crochet stabilizer rounds. Putting a solid border of single crochets right at the top gives us a clean, strong edge to anchor our handles to in the next steps. But wait, Before you cruise all the way to round 26, we have a vital checkpoint at round 13. The designer specifically notes this as a common mistake. Lay your bag flat at round 13. It should be about 6 to 7 inches tall at this point. Look really closely at the bottom corners. Are they holding a sharp rectangular shape? Because if those corners are rounding out, your tension is simply too loose, which will totally distort the final bag. If that's happening, don't panic, just frog it back and go down a hook size. Tension is everything here.
All right, section 4, strong, seamless handles.
Okay, this is where you put down that 5.5mm hook and pick up your tighter 5.0mm hook. For each handle, you'll chain 7 and then work 90 rows of 6 single crochets to make a nice long flat strip. Then you finish it off by single crocheting around all 4 sides. This stops it from curling. Now, placement is key for symmetry here. You want to attach the inner edges right at stitches 17 and 32 on both the front and back panels. Finally, to attach them, you're going to sew them to the inside of the top edge using the box X method. That means stitching a square around the handle base and an X right through the middle. This securely catches 6 or more anchor stitches over those solid stabilizer rounds we made earlier. Guys, this is the industry standard to ensure your handles never ever rip off.
Now, how do you know if you sewed them on right? Well, you test it. The pattern actually challenges you to hang 5 pounds, about 2.3 kilograms, inside the bag for a full 10 minutes. If you see the stitches pulling or shifting at the handle base, grab your yarn needle and add more reinforcement right away.
Moving on to section 5, linings and assembly. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the designer's strict rule on structure. I know adding a lining might seem a bit daunting to a beginner, but it's highly recommended so you don't lose small items like your keys or lip balm through those beautiful mesh holes. The quote here says it all. Interfacing is non-negotiable for a structured beach tote. Even with tight stitches and cotton yarn, adding medium-weight fusible interfacing to your lining fabric is mandatory. It totally prevents the bag from stretching under heavy weight and permanently holds that sharp, rectangular silhouette we worked so hard to build. So here's how the assembly flows. First, before you even insert the lining, you install the magnetic snap. Just push the prongs right through the crochet fabric at the top center and through a small square of interfacing on the back just to distribute the force. Then, cut and iron your interfacing directly to your lining panels, so the side gussets to the front and back panels to basically create a fabric box. Finally, drop that fabric box inside your tote, fold the top edge down, and hand sew a whip stitch to secure the lining strictly to the back loops of the top crochet round. Doing it this way completely hides the stitches and leaves you with a really beautiful clean finish.
We're almost done. Section 6, finishing touches and decor.
And this brilliantly illustrates what I mean. We're in the home stretch, and this is the fun part that takes your tote from looking homemade to truly artisan crafted. Just look at the visual payoff of these decorative elements. The wooden beads and those thick, luxurious tassels hanging right next to those sturdy box X handle attachments, it really gives it that high-end, beach-ready aesthetic.
Creating these charms is incredibly easy too. Just cut 30 strands of your main yarn about 14 inches long. Fold them all in half, tie a hanging loop at the top, and wrap another strand tightly about an inch below the fold to create the tassel head. You can even thread on some optional cowrie shells if you want a fun nautical vibe. Finally, string 5 to 7 wooden beads onto the hanging loop and knot it securely right where the handle meets the bag body.
Okay, the very last technical step is wet blocking. Because we used cotton, it responds beautifully to water. You'll want to stuff your finished bag tightly with folded towels. This forces it into a perfect, crisp rectangle. Lightly mist the outside with clean water, and use your hands to tug and straighten the corners and sides. Then just let it dry like that for 12 to 24 hours. Honestly, this is the absolute secret to opening up those mesh holes evenly for a professional look. Finish off by weaving in your ends, and maybe add a tiny dot of fabric glue to the cotton tails to prevent any fraying. Let's move to the final dimensions and see how this builds out. The standard medium bag we just walked through finishes at 14 inches wide, 13 inches tall, with a 5-inch depth and a 12-inch handle drop. But the beauty of this pattern is the math. If you want a mini version or a massive beach size, you simply alter sets of 2 stitches to change the width, or sets of 4 rows to change the handle length. The pattern literally gives you complete control over the proportions. And just like that, you have completely mastered bag structure, tension control, seamless handle attachment, and even fabric lining. This is such a fantastic project that yields an incredibly useful and gorgeous accessory. So I guess the only question left to answer is, which color cotton yarn are you going to choose, and what adventure will your Sandy Shore tote go on first? Grab that 5.5mm hook, start chaining, and enjoy the process. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy stitching!